I'm Mark Muncy, the author of Eerie, Florida and Freaky Florida. For nearly 30 years, I've collected myths, monsters, legends, and more ghost stories than you can imagine. Join me as we journey to some of the spookiest and craziest places on Earth that might just be in your own backyard. Welcome to Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers. Welcome back to Eerie Travels, and today we are going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite subjects. Now, when we talk about things like ghosts and UFOs, I am always happy. I love it, but there is one thing that sets my heart aflame, and that is cryptids and those cryptid monsters. We love monsters here with the Eerie Travels team, and we are going to be talking about two of our absolute favorites. Now, when you talk cryptids and when you talk unusual creatures, two names come instantly to mind, and of course, number one is the Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And then a short little distance, those in the know would say, not too far away, the PopeLick Monster of Louisville, Kentucky. Now, we're just going to scratch the surface of these. We could do days on each of these subjects because they are some of the most often researched and the most, just explored creatures of lore. But we're going to have a little fun with these guys. I think you're going to enjoy some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. And just follow along, if you will. So first up, you can't talk about cryptids without talking about Mothman, so let's talk about Mothman and get him out of the way. The Mothman of Point Pleasant, first spotted 1966 by 5 men in the town of Clendon, West Virginia. They were grave diggers doing their job when a flying creature flew over them. Now, they said it looked like a man, but had glowing red eyes as it flew past. Now, no one thought much about this until 2 days later, when it was spotted again in the town of Point Pleasant, in an area called the TNT area, where there was a former munitions factory from World War II. And it was a nice place to go. It had been long abandoned, and people would go out there and drive, and just to get away from the town. It was a nice, place for necking and having fun times. And what this two couples were together in one car driving, and they saw this creature with arms and wings and giant legs, and it was trying to remove its wings that had been entangled in barbed wire. Now, most people, when they hear this story, don't get this part of the story, and it's very important because that talks about his arms, that talks about his legs, that talks about his hairy wings. And now he gets loose and just kind of stares at him and then runs off into the abandoned factory there. Runs off, not flies off. They panic and start driving back into town. They're not sure what the heck they've just seen. On the way back to town, it's there in front of them in the road with its glowing red eyes. How did it get in front of them? They were flying. They were going as fast as they could. So they start flying even harder. They hit the gas as hard as they can, and it keeps showing up in front of them and in random places, perched on a tree, all this. They're doing 100 miles an hour, and this thing is keeping up with them. They never see it fly, but they keep seeing it in positions all around it. When they finally get to town, they are so rattled, they go to the sheriff. There's nowhere else to go. This is a small town. And they go straight to the sheriff's office, tell him their story. He believes them, so he runs out to go investigate and find out what they saw. They don't find the creature, but they do see places where the grass has been pushed down and all that. It's an unusual story. It's then gone, they go to the press, and the press vouches for these people. They're upstanding young citizens, and the police vouch for it. What follows is 2 years of sightings, of mass sightings of this creature. And the newspaper is constantly running stories. Everyone's talking about the Mothman, this crazy creature, this creature of legend. Well, it goes on for a couple years, and then famously, the bridge that crosses the town from Point Pleasant over to Gallipolis, Ohio, washes out in a freak accident and the collapse of the Silver Bridge. And when that happens, suddenly stories about Mothman didn't seem to matter anymore, just kind of disappeared. They left public consciousness. But did the Mothman leave? He's still seen. He was still reported, just the newspaper stopped reporting him. Now, there is, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to this day, still talk of the Mothman. And they kind of let it disappear from history for a little while. But around 2000, they decided, this is our monster. We need to embrace it. And he was starting to become a little famous thanks to the thing called the internet. So they decided to create a museum. And so the Mothman Museum opened in 2003, and it is still visitable, and it is a blast to visit. The Mothman Museum has exhibits dedicated to Mothman, and also the movie, The Mothman Prophecies, which came out in the year 2000. There we go, there's some footage. Now, the Mothman Museum has tons of exhibits, all the newspaper clippings you could possibly want, from UFOs to the Men in Black, and all the associated phenomena. Now, there's the red-eyed creature reported in West Virginia, and all these other reportings. This was making national headlines, and this museum has it all collected. Outside the museum is the infamous Mothman statue. This was also commissioned about the same time as the Mothman Museum opened, and the very first Mothman Festival. And this statue was commissioned by a local artist who was inspired by the legend of the Mothman and created this wonderful statue that everyone comes to see when they go visit the Mothman Museum and maybe later make their trip out to the TNT Domes. Now, the beautiful thing about the Mothman Museum itself is that it's curated by the man who helped found the Mothman Festival, who helped bring Mothman back to life here in Point Pleasant. And he's also got collections there of the Derenberger encounter with Indrid Cold, which will be on a future episode of Eerie Travels, and also has other products. But when you go see the Mothman, you have to check out the statue's butt. That's the most important part when you visit the statue, because damn, look at that. That's pretty epic. But they've got the original handwritten depositions from Linda Scarberry, one of the initial encounters. She was the one who had psychic visions of the Mothman long after her encounter and had to actually seek mental help for all the trauma that this creature was causing. When you go to the Mothman Festival itself, there are amazing costumes and art and all kinds of books, public speakers. The town of Point Pleasant's a town of 5,000 people. 50,000 people descend on the town for the Mothman Festival. And here are props from the Mothman Prophecies, which was based on the book that John Keel wrote about the Mothman incident. He was there for the duration of the Mothman encounters and wrote a book about it that infamously called The Mothman Prophecies. And this museum is just full of artifacts that you cannot possibly imagine. And there was the issue of High Times that does have the illustration that inspired the artist to make the statue. And the Mothman legend has spread far and wide. He's now seen in Chicago. He's been seen in Chernobyl. He's been seen in Indiana, in Chicago. It's amazing how many people report flying humanoids. Now, the name Mothman came from one of the reporters who, when he wanted a name for it, and of course this was '66, and the Batman TV show was on, and everybody kept saying he looked like a flying bat or a gargoyle. Well, they couldn't call him Batman. They'd have to pay royalties to DC and the television networks. So, of course, they called him Mothman. And we've got the town itself embraces Mothman. So as you can see, there's cryptid stuff everywhere. The shops have Mothman themed merchandise. They have other of the local monsters too, including the Flatwood Monster and all. When you visit the statue, a lot of people love to decorate the sign. Now, one thing the museum definitely wanted me to let everyone know who goes to visit Point Pleasant, when you go visit the Mothman statue, people like to leave offerings on the statue, and at times the town thinks that's great, but they often leave cans of beans. Now, this is a new thing because of the game Fallout 76, which has the Mothman statue and the Mothman Museum in it, and Mothman himself. There's also a Mothman cult that you interact with in the game, and apparently that is where the beans come from. Well, the problem is the town of Point Pleasant now has to pick up tons and tons and tons of cans of beans. It's not funny anymore. They would much rather you donate them to your local homeless shelter and help out people in need at home. So a short distance from the Mothman Museum is where it all went down. And that's the Mothman Domes, or the TNT Domes. Now, you drive out of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and you go to this wilderness preserve now. But what it was a munitions factory in World War II. And the reason it was in West Virginia was they figured the Nazis were never going to bomb West Virginia. So that's where they developed explosives. And that's why it was called the TNT factory, even though they didn't develop TNT. But they had all these domes, these conical domes that were bunkers to store the explosives in. Now, when they abandoned the plant in the 1950s, they took most of the explosives away, most of them. The domes themselves were a fun hangout spot for kids in the area, and sadly, they tragically claimed a few lives because some of those explosives became very unstable and exploded, what they're supposed to do. But you can drive a short distance away from the Mothman Museum and head out to these domes. Do we have the footage of that, Rob? So here we are in the TNT area, just outside of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Also the McClintock Wildlife Center. And this is one of the TNT domes where they stored chemicals and other munitions for World War II. They were abandoned after World War II. And in 2008, somebody got into one of these and it blew up because there were still chemicals inside. So this is why you don't go in the ones that are still locked up. Now there are some that are open and you can go and explore. This is also where the Mothman sightings occurred, was in this area. This was a good area to drive around, and when it was still an abandoned base, the roads were a little better and you could drive at 100 miles an hour and have fun. And guess what? A couple couples, this is where they were out driving one night and got chased by Mothman, the infamous, most famous sighting, technically the second. We're here on the anniversary of the first sighting, which was in not a short distance away, and we'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, it's a beautiful place out here, and it's a nice little brisk autumn day. Someone's out hunting. I can hear some shotgun shells going off, or just target practice. But anyway, beautiful place. Can't miss it for your Eerie travels. Inside one of the TNT bunkers. How's that for an echo? Not sure how well that comes out on camera, but it's pretty crazy in here. There's some markings on the ground where somebody had done a ritual. Summoning Mothman? Don't know. So yeah, that echo is, when you walk into those domes, they are perfectly sounded like that, and it echoes crazy. People do rituals out there. People try to summon the Mothman out there. If he was going to live anywhere, that might be the place. And it's pretty crazy out there when you go visit. There are tons of these domes. There are literally rows and rows of them that you can visit. And the ones that are still closed, we say stay out, because that could be unsafe areas. There's it is a wildlife preserve, so there you can see the wonderful beaver dam that's there. And we've also got, that's the trails that you walk down, and the domes are off to the right. So they keep it pretty well because it is a national park. There's inside the dome, there is tons of graffiti on the walls. It is pitch black in there. And you can explore any of the domes for a long time and you'll find all kinds of great artwork on the walls, and some fun, not safe for work stuff. My personal favorite there. And it's pretty awesome. It's a neat place to explore, if nothing else for the historical value as an old munitions factory, but also as a wildlife preserve. But you're really there for Mothman. There have been sightings of him still in that area to this day. There are sightings of many things out here in the woods of West Virginia, and highly recommend you go visit. And if you're going there in the spring, like there, make sure you bring bug spray, because it is very swampy. It is a strange place to visit. And when you go in the domes, just be ready for anything, because it's crazy. There's just something about that area that is, it calls to you. It definitely feels weird. But, not too far from the town of Point Pleasant. Definitely worth a visit. And you gotta love West Virginia. So, but we're gonna take a detour away from West Virginia, and we're gonna head over to Louisville, Kentucky for our next monster. And that is that guy right there, the PopeLick Monster. Now, he is a goat man with a bloody axe. And he's got an axe to grind with people who hang around the PopeLick Bridge. Now, the story goes that he was captured by circus folk in Canada, and they toured with a freak show all over the United States. And somehow he got loose right as it passed the PopeLick Bridge. Now, that's the modern version of the story. There's an older version of this story. The area of PopeLick was originally called Floyd's Folly. There was a guy there who was one of the first surveyors of Kentucky and a contemporary of George Washington. And he surveyed the land, which what would become Louisville. And he followed this creek. And at one point, he got into a tussle with some Indians, some Native Americans. And they were not happy with him. And he fled. And he wound up getting a group of men to come back and fight. And this area is where he famously lost that fight as they massacred his men, and he fled back and wound up going to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where he linked up with some more soldiers to hopefully get revenge as they fought Chief Cornstalk, who may be one of the inspirations for the legend of Mothman as well. So Chief Cornstalk got around. But anyway, this creature didn't have a woodsman's axe. At that point, had a tribal axe, and that he would chase men away from this area. Now, when you go to this wonderful PopeLick Bridge, it is a trestle bridge that goes over PopeLick Creek, and it's right at the bend in the creek called Floyd's Folly, named after Floyd's sad encounter. And it's an active trestle bridge. People come investigate this for the monster. It is infamous because you can see all kinds of crazy things in this area. Now, it's right off of a main road. It leads up to a wonderful park, but this monster has a death toll. Sadly, a young girl named Savannah was investigating this creature and fell to her death from the trestle bridge above. And a sad, sad thing. And that's people break into this bridge. It's fenced off. You can't go up on top of the bridge. You can walk underneath it all you want. There's this wonderful pathway through there. But people try to get up on the bridge because that's where the monster is. And they don't realize, because it looks so old, they don't realize this is an active trestle bridge. There's trains come across this bridge all the time. And sadly, little Savannah, she was up on this bridge with her boyfriend looking for the monster for YouTube fame. And the train came, and he was able to hang on to the side. She was not, and she fell to her death. Some say she was hit, but all we know is she was down there and passed away. And there's a memorial to her, and she would have graduated in 2021. So such a tragic tale. But the monster legend, of course, grows from this. There are tons of sightings and tons of legendary encounters with the PopeLick Monster. A local haunted house uses the PopeLick Monster as one of their icons. It's also a short distance from the Waverly Hills Insane Asylum, which has been long abandoned and is a very popular spot for paranormal experts to go visit. So when they go visit that, they frequently come back and visit PopeLick and check out for the monster. So when there, like always we say, be careful, you never know what you're gonna see. So I think we have some footage of our trip there. Do we have that, Rob? Yeah. So we are at the PopeLick Trestle Bridge, looking, of course the legends are of the PopeLick Monster. So of course everybody comes here to tag and climb the bridge and look for the goat man with an axe, who's a serial killer. But the real tragedy is Savannah here, a young girl. She was here looking for the monster, climbed up on the Trestle Bridge with her young boyfriend. It's an active Trestle Bridge, so a train came across. She didn't make it. She got hit by the train, and her boyfriend, however, survived by hanging on the side. But a real tragedy with a urban legend chasing. So that's why we're always careful when we do our eerie travels. So if you go from PopeLick and drive out to Point Pleasant and go visit the Mothman area and the Mothman Museum, it's about a 3-hour drive. But about 30 minutes away from Point Pleasant, you'll find our Eerie destination for today, which is an amazing place to stop and have some good grub. It's called Hillbilly Hot Dogs, and this is a place that defies description. Of course, they sell hot dogs. It's what they do. But the atmosphere here is to die for. The signs are made out of reclaimed everything. There are tons of crazy artifacts all over this place. And the food are hot dogs, and they're all themed around various hillbilly things, including the Mothman dog and amongst others. Of course, you've got the outhouse outside, but I love that the gas pump's attached to it. There is tons and tons. You will just keep walking and you will just keep seeing more and more stuff. And of course, they show you Mothman Museum, 30 miles away. They've got little things nailed to the wall everywhere. Now, the dining rooms are what you see there. There are school buses, and they have been hollowed out, and that's where you eat. There's the moonshine still. There are, you think it's just a pile of garbage, and it kind of is, but it's so decorative. It's so amazing, and it really is just this standout spot right on the road from Point Pleasant to Huntington, West Virginia. And that's not one of the dining room hot dog buses, but I guess it was at one point. Now it's one of the decorative buses with the picnic tables outside. But there's the wedding chapel where they have had many weddings. I like the Kissing Cousins wedding kissing booth right next to it. This is just such an eclectic place. And like I said, every little thing you open, you never know what you're going to find there. These dolls and everything, and everybody scribbles on everything to mark their appearances. I love the old Darth Vader in the leather jacket there, and the Ma and Pa restrooms, of course, because that's what you got out here. The hot dogs themselves range from regular size to footlongs to the double brat, which I did not try, but I did have myself a footlong hot dog there. And I had the Mothman dog. My lovely wife tried their snake dog, which was quite interesting. And like I said, it is just one of those places that screams West Virginia when you go there, and does not hide any of their stuff. And there's inside the dining room, I said, they ain't putting on airs, as they say up there. There is just some classic stuff. And we had some deep fried mushrooms as well. That was me trying their bacon and fried bologna sandwich because, hey, I'm in the Hillbillies. I got to have fried bologna. If you go visit West Virginia and you don't eat fried bologna or a pepperoni roll, you've broken some laws and they will come after you. Well, sorry about the glitches. We're still working things out, but I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we're going to be doing for future episodes. I hope you will join us for further travels. We will be talking more cryptids, more monsters. We'll be hitting some UFO hotspots, and we'll be doing a lot of travels all over and getting lots of more footage and wonderful pictures and more tales to tell. So if you would like to suggest a place for us to visit, please email me, mark@eerieflorida.com, and I will be happy to look at what you recommend and maybe take a trip there. And you can find our books available anywhere. We're from the History Press, where we have Eerie, Florida, Freaky Florida, and Creepy Florida. And coming soon, Eerie Appalachia, which will be out in June. And the wonderful illustrations are done by my lovely wife, Carrie Schultz, who also is illustrating the next book, Eerie Appalachia, as we speak, with lots more monsters because there's so many hollers and so many stories. But we hope you will keep up with us and enjoy more of our Eerie travels. I will also be talking at a festival next week, but I don't know when these episodes are going to air, so I don't know if that's really worth saying, but I said it anyway. But I thank you all for your time, and I hope to see you all again very soon. And if I don't see you soon, or we don't see you next week, we'll see you on the other side. Thanks so much for joining us, and I will talk to you soon. Sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of anything else to say. I froze. Throw in 10 more seconds of that footage. I'll throw in something, I'm sorry. You want to come back to me after the credit? Come back to me after the credit, I'll do a post-credit. Yeah, do it. Come back to me when it's done. Oh, is it? Damn. Okay. Shoot. Sorry. I had a thought at the end. Okay, yeah. Record it separately and just tack it on to the end. Hold on. Let me get my Mothman. Hey, Mothman. I hope you enjoyed our talk about you. I know you're not as svelte as your statue, but, you know, and you may not have the buns of steel that he does, but I still love you. I think you're awesome. And there's the wonderful song, Mothman, Mothman, I believe in you, flying around Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And you can't go wrong with that. And you're cuddly, and you're adorable, and you are made by the wonderful people at Hop Toys, and we hope that you order one of them. He is sadly not available at the Mothman Museum because they have their own stuff there. Their stuff there is made by Cryptid Comforts, and it's pretty good too. But go to hoptoys.com, HOPTOYS.com, and you can get yourself one of these guys. They also make a couple other monsters that are a lot of fun. And then Mothman, show me on the doll where you terrified those people in Point Pleasant. Oh wait, you can't do that with him because this is him. But definitely check him out. You can't miss it. It's just such a great toy, and I love him dearly. And and he's fluffy. Come on, who doesn't love a fluffy cryptid?